went from kind of being out and out rock music like Bring It On Down and Supersonic. No, not Supersonic. It went kind of another way then. You know
Classic.
what I mean? Yeah. And I remember just Live Forever was a massive, massive turning point in terms of songwriting, because before that we were kind of a bit scruffy and a bit, but good. But Live Forever was an undeniably great tune.
Oh man, it still is.
And even when it came out, like when Supersonic come out, and you know, if you weren't British, you wouldn't know what the big issue was, or gin and tonics, and there's kind of like British imagery in the lyrics. And the same with Shaker Maker, it's about an old 70s toy. But Live Forever announced us to the world, really, and the sentiments in that song mean as much to the people in Brooklyn as they do in Burnage. But that whole thing came out of the whole sentiment of the song. I remember at the time writing it, and In Utero had just come out, and Nirvana had a tune called I Hate Myself When I Want to Die, and I was like, I'm not that. I am not having
come on, the irony kind of been lost on you on that
well,
song.
I don't do irony. It's like, I'm not having that guy. He's got everything that I want. He's got a big house, he's in the biggest band in the world, he's critically acclaimed, he can't love, he can have her, right? But he's got all the money in the world, he's on smack, and he wants to die. Well, that just won't do. Right. That will not do.
Live forever.
We're going to live forever, mate. What's up with you?
Why, you know, you went into the studio and started making, you know, What's the Story, Morning Glory, like you say, with an established audience in place, but one that, oh man, I mean, you talk about upping the ante. When that album came out, it was all over, wasn't it? You know, in terms of sanity, in terms of, you know, privacy, in terms of everything, and everything that you wished for. Now, again, this is a time when a lot of bands tend to bitch and complain about it, because they're like, wait a minute, I miss my old life, but you embraced it. No, it's what I wouldn't say I was born to do it, but, you know, I wanted the Learjet and Bubbles, the monkey, you know, and the Rolls Royce, and the and the fur coat, you know, and I wanted all, that's all, I wanted all that. There's like some, you know yourself, some bands when they see success coming over the horizon, they get like rabbits in the headlights and think, am I worthy of this? Is it gonna, is it gonna up, you know what I mean? What about my girlfriend, or what about, we were just like, asked, I'll gladly go into a mental asylum for the sake of rock and roll. How long did that last for? How long was that period where you got the monkey and the fur coat and the brown Rolls Royce? 95, 96, 97, 98. For me, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 and a bit years was insane. Yeah. And then they say that those kind of years can be a blur. Is that a cliche? Is that an exaggeration, or is it true? Luckily for us, Oasis were not shy in coming forward, so everything is well documented what we've done, you know. I don't remember the finer details, but I remember like the big things that about like the big gigs and the mad outrageous statements at parties, you know. They're all on drugs, all of them. The Pope, he's a smackhead, he knows it, you know what I mean, all that kind of, I remember all that. But they were brilliant times, because the whole thing was kind of running, the whole Morning Glory thing, it was running away with itself, you know. There was almost like 1 million albums every 6 months or something, and you were just holding on, but it wasn't, we weren't scared of it. It was brilliant, you know. I want a bigger house, you know. I want a bigger car, I want bigger shades. Come on, man. You couldn't have got bigger gigs. No. And their birth was like... No, and I mean, is it true that at one point you sort of, I don't know when it was during those gigs, when you sort of took a look at the crowd, or took a look at, maybe you're on stage, maybe you're side of stage, and thought, we might have actually have a shot here, because where do you go? Well, yeah, I remember afterwards, a pal of mine who's a manager, he was, I think, managing some band at the time, he kind of said, kind of flippantly, so what are you going to do now? Where'd you go now? And it didn't, in a kind of, you know, after gig euphoria, it's like, we're going to do it next year, we're doing 9 nights next year. But then kind of thinking, well, what are we going to do now? You know what I mean? You can't. We've played everywhere. We've achieved everything that we've ever set out to do, which was to become the biggest band in the world, you know, and at that point we were. But I've always said, you know, that you've got to be cool to be cool, you know what I mean? And we were just, it was too euphoric a time to be going, right guys, we need to sit down and you think here, man, where we're going. It's just like, no. And the money had just started coming in from Morning Glory. It's like, I owe it to the history books. We've got to go bananas here. This has got to go more mental. You've got everything that you could ever dream for in terms of the success and the audience, and you're getting luxuries, and like you say, most importantly as a band, the money's coming in, because you don't see that for a long time, and then all of a sudden you can buy a house, you can actually, you know, whatever. But things were starting to unravel a little bit in the lead up to the next record, To Be Here Now, right? We went to the States, and we shut
and I say this only in hindsight, and this is where you've got to be cool to be cool. We should have walked off stage in Nebworth and announced that we were going to, you know, go away and reinvent ourselves and blah, 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 and disappeared for 2 or 3 years, you know, and done a bit of living. But Morning Glory, the album, was in the top 5 in America, and Wonderwall, the only ever single we've had out in America, was, I think it was in the top 3 or something. So we owed it to ourselves to get out there and do it.
Yeah.
So we booked this huge kind of shed tour, and they're like, you know, 30,000 a night. It was all sold out. And it was just that one tour too far where I guess we got there, and we would always put up with the squabbling and infighting on tour buses and all that, because we were never kind of an hour away from home anyway, you know what I mean? But it just kind of spilled over one night, and this is true. This is true. The whole thing collapsed over a really the jacket that Bonehead was wearing when Liam said to him on the back of the tour, but everyone's on, where'd you get that jacket from? And he went, what's it got to do with you? And he went, I'm only asking you. And somebody piped up, it's anyway. And it all escalated from there, and I remember being kind of, as they tumble off the tour bus in the hotel car park, thinking, I'm not having this.
This is it.
You know, let's fight over whether we go jazz or space reggae next time, but let's not fight over not even a good leather jacket.
Right, exactly.
You know, let's fight over a cape. You know what I mean? Or whether we do a concept album of goblins with laser beams, but let's not fight over a brown leather jacket with a fur collar.
And the amount of time and the amount of money that went down the toilet, momentum that went down the toilet over a jacket.
Well,
Was it meant to be that way, though? Did it have to come to an end that way?
Yeah, it's all part of the story, isn't it?
It has to, you know?
And I remember coming back. I take responsibility for that, because I should have just gone to bed and said, we only have 4 gigs left to do, right? And I guess I was trying to make a point to everybody in the band by saying, this is, you know, we're going to here for ourselves.
This is not important, yeah.
In hindsight, it was me that kind of went, no, I shall take my ball, and I shall leave, and I shall go back to England, you know.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, that was the wrong move. And it just caused an absolute frenzy.
Only 4 gigs as well. Bands cancel and postpone gigs all the time. Halfway through tours, you got 4 gigs to go, and it made out like you guys had literally left America begging on the doorstep.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there was nothing else around at the time, and I'm glad that we were in that whirlwind, because, you know, if, let's say the next bright young things go over to America and cancel 4 gigs, nobody will give a flying you know. But unlucky, or whichever way you want to look at it, you know, it was on the front page of the Sun.
Dude, that photo of you walking through with a Union Jack guitar is an iconographic image.
Yeah, man.
Whether you meant it to be or not. And the fact that you're carrying your guitar out of case.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you meant it that way, but I mean, you know, the symbologists will sit down and say that what you were stating to the press was, I am just a musician with a guitar in my hand, so back the
Yeah. And even after that, we shouldn't have gone. Then we had like a week off and went straight into the studio to
How did you regroup and go into the studio after something like that? I mean, what's the story? You just have couple pints and it's done.
Yeah, it was kind of like a meeting round at somebody's house, and like, well, you were out of order. Well, you were out of order. Well, you said this, and I said that.
Right.
And then I think the speculation was that we were going to split. To end that, somebody had the bright idea of going into the studio and having a show of unity. And of course, we went in, and it just went.
Is it that bad a record? Be Here Now?
No, it's an absolute expression of its time.
I can find a lot of merit in that album, and I like that.
It hasn't got the legs of Definitely Maybe, right? And it hasn't got, you know, the glory of Morning Glory. But when you were there, when that record came out, you knew about it, man. And for that 6-month period, whatever it was, right, it sold 9 million copies. I would give my child, right, I would give my child to Satan if my next record sells 9 million
That
copies.
is not true, by the way. That is not true. No,
if you're watching, Satan. 9 million, and they were going on it. The Oasis bandwagon stalls at 9 million.
It comes to an
as I'm bouncing 2 chimps on my knee like that.
Dude, the record industry right now would literally kidnap your child and sell it to Satan if anyone could sell 9 million records in a year.
Yeah,
when did you get off drugs? When did you decide to quit drugs?
It was 1998. It was half-time between Germany and Italy in the World Cup in France.
Right.
And I got up from an heavy night the night before with a friend of mine who is of Italian descent, and a big fat and a red stripe for breakfast, and then just went, this is not good, man.
And that was
this is not good. And I kind of broke into the sweats and went, and I'm